Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to session 2 Android Training Development. So, before we start with today's session, the more of technical things like how to create an Android application, how to use some of the controls which is available in Android. So, before seeing all these things, I'll just give you a recap of what we saw in the previous session. So, in the previous session, we saw like what is an Android, the different versions of Android, code names, code names in the sense like lollipop, marshmallow, gingerbird. So these things, and also the architecture of the Android, and also we saw how to install the software. Like again, I just give you a short info of the installing the software so that the persons who didn't attend the last session will be able to understand once more. So for installing the software, which is more important, first you need to download the Java SDK and also the Android Studio. So you need to download these two softwares. So for downloading these two softwares, the links can be the links you can find it in the previous session videos. So you just take those links, download the software. So you need to install the Java SDK first. After installing the Java SDK first, you need to set the environmental variables. So once you set the environmental variables, you just check whether the Java SDK is installed properly or not. To check whether Java SDK is installed properly or not, you can run the following commands. From the Windows operating system, go for your command prompt. From your Windows command prompt, you just type Java. So once you type the word Java, you should be able to see some arguments or some messages that is being displayed. And after this, just type Java C. So again, when you type Java C, if you find some messages or some output which is being displayed, it confirms that the Java software is successfully installed in your system. You need to run both these commands. Just run both these commands and you'll be able to see some messages. If you see the messages from both the outputs, it's confirmed that the Java software is installed successfully. If you find there is some message, something like Java C or Java is not an internal or external command, it means that you have not set the environmental variables. So set the environmental variables and then do the same procedure. Setting the environmental variables, I have showed you those things in the previous session. So you can just see the previous video for that one. Okay, after confirming the installation of Java software, next you can install the Android Studio. Installing an Android Studio is very much simple. Download that file, double click on the exe file, it will start installing. It will ask you few things, just keep clicking on next, continue and so on. So that finishes the installation of the software which is required for the Android development. So if you have any doubts, you have the chat window and you have the Q&A window, so you can raise the question over there so that I'll be able to answer for that one. I repeat once more, if you have any questions, queries, you can raise those questions either in the chat window or else in the QA panel. Okay, that was the first module. In the second module, we saw what is an activity, the life cycle of it, the resources, and information about the r.java file, manifest file, and also the Gradle concept. Uh, Someone has message saying that, but every time it says to run again. I didn't get the question. Uh, Sudhir, what you can do is for the Android Studio, probably you need to go for the installation path. Like in my system in Windows, the Android Studio will be installed in one of the program files. See, in my system, it is saying it is installed in program files, Android folder. Again, inside the Android Studio folder, you'll be able to see this file, Android Studio. So just go for your bin directory inside the Android Studio. You should be able to see the studio. So double click on it to open the Android Studio, or else you just search for the Android icon. Probably you're trying to run the installation file, so that every time it's asking you to install the software, you need to install the software only once. After installing the software, probably you can delete that file, or else if you want it in future, you can retain that file. Okay, can we start with the next module? Okay, fine. So this is the third module, Android UI widgets. So either we can call it as an Android UI widgets or controls. An app's user interface is everything that the user can see and interact with. Android provides a variety of pre-built user interface widgets commonly known as controls that allow you to build a graphical user interface for your app. So in this unit, you'll be learning some of the UI widgets or controls that you can use in your apps. See, the most important thing in any app development, irrespective of whether it's an Android or iOS or Windows, irrespective of app development, the most important thing that we need to concentrate is the user interface, which we call it as the UI or UX. The most important thing is the user interface. See, the normal users who use the app will never see what coding you have written, but rather they concentrate or they see how your UI looks. So we need to concentrate more on the user interface. So that should be given as the the first priority. The second priority will always come to your coding part. Since no one can see your coding, it's only a functionality. It should work good. That's it. So the most important thing that you need to concentrate is on the user interface. You need to make sure that it looks good, use proper color combinations and so on, and make sure let the images be with a good resolution. So at the end of this unit, you'll be able to recognize most commonly used UI widgets like text view, button, radio button, checkbox and toast, and identify the XML syntax to code the common UI widgets, and also identify how widgets are referenced in Java. And the last one, identify the attributes of the most commonly used UI widgets. So we'll be seeing all these things in this module. The most commonly used UI widgets are text view, button, radio button, checkbox and toast. So if you observe all these things, the first four are your UI widgets or controls. The fifth one is not a control, but it's just a concept or a library being provided by the Android for displaying the toast messages. Anyhow, I'll be explaining the concept at the end of this module, but for time being, you can just understand that first four, whatever you see, text view, button, radio button and checkbox is the Android controls, or else you can call it as an Android widgets. So these four are the controls, and the last one which you can see is the torch, is nothing but a library which is being provided by the Android framework for displaying the messages, a kind of toast messages on the screen. So it is not considered to be as a control, but it's just a library for displaying the messages on the screen. So we'll go with the first control, text view widget. A text view widget displays text for user and optionally allows them to edit. I think you might have seen in the website, people who are aware about the website development like web designing, or if you have learned or heard about the HTML language, you can see that for displaying the messages on the website, we use either the label tag or the h1, h2, h3 heading tags, right, or a span tag. So we use these tags for displaying the information to the user. Likewise, in Android, for displaying the information to the user, we have the text view control. So basically, text view is a control which is used for displaying the information to the user. So here you can see that, I'll just highlight this one. So here you can see that whatever information is displayed over here, whatever information is displayed over here is nothing but the text view control. So using a text view control, this particular statement is being displayed. So this is the text view control. So some of the attributes of the text view widget are these things. So you have the Android ID. ID is basically used for giving a variable name for the control. See, for each and everything, okay, for example, in the website itself, we usually use the ID attribute or the name attribute for accessing those controls, right? Likewise, in Android, if you want to access the control and do some operations on it, for example, if there is a text box and the user enters the username and password in that one. So now, what is your role? You need to fetch those two values, username and password. Either you cross-check with the database, checking whether the username and password exists in database. If it exists, you can do some operation, or else you can perform some other action, right? So ultimately, you need to get the values from the controls. So for accessing the values from the controls, you need to give a variable name for it. Basically, you need to give a name for it. Like how persons have the name, likewise even controls should be given a name. If you don't give any name for the controls, you can't access it, right? Like same thing, if a person doesn't have any name, how can you call him? It's not possible, right? Likewise, even for the controls, you need to give a variable name for it. Only then you'll be able to access those variable names and do some and perform some actions on it. So for declaring a variable name, you need to use this ID attribute. You need to use this ID attribute, which is the most important thing. All the controls in Android has this attribute, Android :ID, which is the common one. Remember this one. All the controls in Android has this attribute, Android :ID. Next, we have the font family, where you can set the font family, input type, text, what text needs to be displayed, like good afternoon, India is my country, like whatever information you want to display, you can use this attribute. Next is the text color, text size. Next is the text style. Basically, text style can be either your bold italic or bold italic, combination of both. Next, we have the typeface as normal, sans serif or monospace. So you have, these are all the font things. So you can use all these attributes for displaying the information. And the last two is your layout width and the layout height. You can specify the width and height for the control, for the text view control. So there are different features about this layout width and layout height. as the session goes on, we'll see what extra features are available inside this layout width and layout height. So for time being, you can just understand that you need to give some layout, you need to give some width and height for the control. So some of the commonly used methods for this control are these things: set text, get text, set max lines. So if you set some maximum number of lines, only that information will be displayed only in so much number of lines. For example, if you mention 4 lines for the text view, even if the information will be displayed only in 4 lines, any characters which cannot be displayed will be truncated or removed. So the maximum number of lines will always be 4 if you use this set max lines concept. Likewise, get max lines, and the last one, set enable or get enable. If you set the set enable to be as true or false, you can enable or disable the controls. Remember this one. Again, there are 2 properties over here, or 2 attributes. One is enable concept and one is visibility concept. If we use the enable concept to be as true or false, it is something like you can use the control or you cannot use the control, but the control is visible. I repeat once more, there are 2 common terminologies. One is enable and disable concept and one is visibility concept in the entire Android controls. I am not speaking about this with respect to this particular control, but rather than complete Android controls. There are 2 concepts. One is enable and disable concept, that is the first one. Second one is your visibility concept. If you make a control to be as enable or disable, you can use the control or you cannot use the control, but still the control is visible on the screen. If suppose you don't want to display the control on the screen, then you can set the visibility to be as invisible. Fine. So just remember these 2 terminologies. Anyhow, we'll be seeing those things in further modules or sessions. So you have this text view control inside the palette. Anyhow, I'll be showing these things in the Android Studio. For time being, you can just understand this one. In your Android Studio, you have this palette tab. Inside this palette, you have these text view controls. So these are all the text view controls. So if you use any one of the text view control, you get the output something like this. Information can be anything. So the XML code for that text view is this one. You have the text view control. This is the syntax for text view code. Sorry, text view control. So here you are giving the variable name. Here you are giving the variable name. Here you are specifying the width and height. And here you are specifying the information, what needs to be displayed. And inside the layout width and layout height, either you can specify directly the numbers, something like 20 dp, 40 dp, with whatever space you want. You can specify the number directly over here, or else you can use the wrap content or fill parent. Sorry, wrap content and match parent. This fill parent is being deprecated, so you're not supposed to use this fill parent. So let us not concentrate on that one. It is more or less similar to your match parent, but the fill parent is being deprecated. So you are supposed to use only the wrap content on the match parent. I'll be explaining this wrap content and match parent practically, so that you get more understanding about that one. But for time being, you can just understand that ID is nothing but a variable name for that one. So you should always, whenever you are declaring a variable name, you should always use this symbol, @ plus ID slash. So these are the things we should always use it for declaring the variable name. After using the slash, you need to give this variable name. Next, you need to specify the layout width and layout height, which I'll explain you in the practical thing. Next, you need to specify the information over here inside this text attribute. Apart from this, you can also set the color, bold or italics, and even other things. So this is how you reference the control in Java. So for getting the reference of the control in Java, you need to use this syntax: text view find view by id r.id.textView, where text view is nothing but my control name. If you see the previous slide, you can see that my control name was text view. So you need to use the same variable name if you want to access it in Java file. So I'm using the same variable name. So you need to get the reference of the control in Java. So only then you will be able to access and change the values of it or perform some actions on it. So you need to use this find view by id function. In that you need to pass the parameter r.id.textView. So this find view by id will return you a return type of the type view. The return type of the find view by id function is of the type view. So you need to convert that view into text view by using the typecasting concept. So that's the reason you are doing a typecasting over here, because this find view by id function will return you a view object. This find view by id function will return you a view object. So you need to convert this view into text view object and then store it inside this variable, where the type should match to this typecasting or class. Okay, before going for the next control, I'll just show you practically about that control. So if anyone is not understood how to create an Android Studio project, I'll just show you once more. See, once you double click on this Android Studio, you can you get this Android Studio software open. Since I've already opened the Android Studio software, okay, what I can do is I'll just close my project. Okay, fine. So once you double click on this Android Studio software, you get this window. So here you can say start a new Android Studio project or open an existing Android Studio project, depending upon what you want to do. So in my case, I'll just create a new Android Studio project. So click on the start a new Android Studio project. You'll be getting this window. So here you need to give the application name. I'll just give demo session 2 as my application name. So you need to give a package name. Package name is nothing but your application name, or else you can use whatever you want, but let it be meaningful. So give your package name over here, and you need to select the destination where you want to store the project. So I'll be storing my project inside my D folder, this Manipal project samples folder, and inside that I'll be creating this project. So you can set the location wherever you want. So after filling up all the things, click on next. So here you can select the version number from where you want to target the Android app. So if you are creating an Android application, you need to target to specific, or you need to target to some of the Android devices from which API version to which API version. So in my case, I'm saying that my Android app will be supportable from API 17 onwards, which is nothing but Jelly Bean onwards. So whatever app I create now will be able to run on API 17 and above. Fine. And remember one thing, if you try to select the lower versions, you need to make sure that few features won't work on the lowest devices. So you need to handle those scenarios. For example, few libraries won't work on lower version. So for those kind of things, you need to do it in an alternate way, right? So make sure you select the appropriate version. So if I select API 17, you can see over here, by targeting API 17 and later, your app will be able to run on 87.4% of the devices. Likewise, if I select API 9, you can see my app will be running on all 100% of the devices available in the Google Play Store. So try to select the appropriate version for which you are targeting. So right now I'll just go with API level 17. Click on next. So you will be getting a different UI screens over here. What I would suggest you for y'all is don't try to use all these things. Once you learn with the first you learn with the basic things. So for learning with the basic things, you need to select this empty activity. So select this empty activity. Select this empty activity and click on next. So once you click on next, you'll be able to see the activity name and the layout name. Okay, I'll just give one more information about the activity for whoever was not attended the previous session. An activity is nothing but a page. See, in HTML, you save pages, right? Login page, register page, forgot password page, home page, so on. Likewise, in Android, you don't use the word page, but rather we use the word as activities or fragments. But fragments is a later concept, so let's not concentrate on it. So for time being, then just remember as activity is nothing but a page. Now, an activity contains two files within it, which is nothing but the Java file, and one more is the layout file. Layout file is nothing but an XML file. So all the designing you need to do inside this layout file. So whatever design you do, if you want to access that controls within the design, you need to reference it inside the Java file. So that's the reason I said you an activity is nothing but a combination of layout file, which is nothing but an XML file, and your Java file. Remember these things. An activity is nothing but a combination of XML file and your Java file. So here I give the activity name. So this activity name is nothing but my Java file. So I won't change the name, but rather I'll use the same name itself. If you want, you can give a new name, something like login activity, register activity, but try to use this word activity. Fine, it's not compulsory, but try to use the prefixes, activity, something like that. So that immediately when you see the file, you'll be able to understand that this is an activity file. If I don't use this activity, so now suddenly if you see or suddenly if someone sees, they will be in a confusion, right? Whether this main is Java file or whether it's a activity Java file or whether it's a interface. So people will be in a confusion. I mean, developers will be in a confusion. So that's the reason it's always a good practice. You use the word activity in the end. So I just use the same word activity, main activity, and this is nothing but my layout XML file name. So again I'll use the same name over here, activity underscore main or activity underscore login, activity underscore register. So these are all nothing but the examples which you can use. So after filling all these things, you can click on the finish button, which will create the Android Studio project. So just wait for some time. You should be able to see the Android Studio project being created. So until then, let the project be created. Is everyone able to understand? Can you all please confirm, is everyone able to understand? Can I proceed? Okay, fine, thank you. So now I have created the Android Studio project. So now you can see that inside this package, I've already explained you these things, this structure in the previous session. So I just give a info about all these things very fast. So this is the Android Studio project. So here is the manifest directory. Inside this manifest directory, you have this Android manifest file, which contains the complete configurations of the entire Android Studio project. I repeat once more, this Android manifest.xml file is the most important file that will be created automatically when you create the project, and it contains all the configurations about your entire project. What are the activities available? If there are n number of activities, in that n number of activities, which should be a startup activity, which should be a launchable activity. So all these configurations will be put inside this manifest.xml file. So here you can see that here is the icon over here. We have set the icon over here, and we have set the label for the Android Studio project. So here if you see, there is some string which is been applied. So if you press the control key, just press the control key and place the cursor on this. So you should be able to see this hyperlink. So once you click on this hyperlink, it will take you to the strings.xml file. This strings.xml file is present inside this values folder. So here you can see the strings.xml file. Here the app name is nothing but demonstration2. You can always change the name of it. It's something like you're referencing this name, app name, from this file into this Android manifest file. So all the constants you can define it over here, something like this. So I'll give I'll just give the error message, password. Please enter the password. So this is a fixed constant. So I'm giving a variable name over here. So for this variable name, this is the value. So these are all nothing but the constants. If you are familiar about the C, C++, Java languages, you use the as defined const final, right, for defining the constants. Likewise, for defining the constants, you can use this file. So the same variable name is being referenced over here in this label. So next you're saying, suppose RT1 equals to true. Next you're applying some default theme. Next, here is one activity which is being created. We created one activity, right? Main activity. So this is the activity which is being created. So if you create one more activity, there will be one more activity record. Something like this. It's showing red color because there is no activity. But if there is one more activity, then you need to add this entry. If you create the activity manually from here, this piece of code will be automatically generated. So we don't need to worry about those things. So here you can see that here we say that the main activity is nothing but the launcher activity. Here we are saying that this particular activity will be as the launcher activity. The meaning of that one is, if there are 10 activities inside your project, at least one activity should be as the startup file, right? So that's the reason you're specifying this as the launcher activity, which indicates that once you launch your Android app, this will be the activity that will be shown up on the screen. So this is your Android manifest file. Next is your Java packages. So inside this package, you have this main activity file where you will be referencing the Android controls and doing some actions on it. And inside this activity file, Okay, this is their activity file. These are nothing but the default which is being created application text. So you can use all these things for testing purpose. These two packages you can use it for testing purpose. And next is the RES folder where you can see this drawable folder. So all your images, everything should be put inside this drawable folder. Remember, you can't refer the images which is present inside your system. If you want to use any images, you need to put those images inside this drawable folder. The layout folder. Your XML files, I mean your layout files, layout.xml files will be residing inside this layout folder or directory. We created one activity underscore main.xml file, right? So here you can see that the file is being present. So here you can see the launcher icons. All the launcher icons are present over here. And the next one is the values directory. Here you can, inside the colors, you can see that there is some colors being applied, default styles. So you can change the colors. So it will immediately be reflected. Next you have the dimensions. So all your dimensions you can specify over here. So here you can see that there is one constant which is being declared and we are specifying it as 60 dp. So you can define the dimensions over here like width, height and so on. Next is the strings.xml file which I explained you earlier. Nothing but the constant declaration. Next is the styles. So all the styles can be specified over here. So here if you see that the styles are being applied and again the colors are being imported from this colors.xml file. So all the colors are being imported from this file. See if I press the control button and place the cursor on this, you can see it gets converted into an hyperlink. So if I click on this, you can see it takes me to the colors.xml file. So all these colors are being referenced inside this styles.xml file. So you can add your own styles over here. So that was all your folders. So coming back for your project. Here we have the activity file. Here we have the activity file. So inside this main activity, we have one function called as onCreate. So whenever this activity gets loaded, this will be the function that will be called. So inside this function, you are saying super.onCreate saved instance save. Next, you are saying set content view r.layout.activity main. So for this particular Java activity file, this will be the layout file which will be created. Understood? So we have some design which is being done inside this activity, inside this layout file, right? So when this Java file gets loaded, you need to display some screen, right? So that some screen will be present inside this activity main. So whatever XML file you specify over here, that will be displayed on the screen. So I'll just take you for this activity main file. So just double click on this activity main file. So here you can see this is the XML, this is the layout file or the design file. So here is the palette. So these are all nothing but the controls available in Android, and these are all nothing but the sections. So there are different sections available or categories, what you say. So inside that you have the text fields, widgets, layouts and other things. And this is a design file, and what you can see the design over here. Each and every time you don't need to run your Android application and see how your output looks like. You can just design your screen and right away you can see over here itself. So this is the design screen, and if you want to see the code related to this design, you just click on this text tab over here. So here you have the two tabs, design tab and the text tab. See, This is the XML code which is actually generating this output over here. Here you can see hello world, right? So the same output is displayed over here. So what I'll do is I'll just give the text size. See, I'll give the text size as 40 SP. So immediately the size changes over here, right? So like this you can do some changes. You can see some space over here, right? Before this hello world and after this hello world, you can see some space because there is some size which is being given over here. Padding bottom, left, right and top. So before this control gets displayed, you are giving some space. And you can see that this particular style is being referred. So if you place the cursor, where is this file present? It is present inside this values folder. Here inside this values folder there is dimensions file, right? Inside this dimensions file you can see activity horizontal margin and vertical margin is 16 dp. So these two styles have been referenced over here. So that's the reason you're able to see this difference, some space. So what I'll do is you can always define the constants directly over here itself, or else you can give a constant over there in the dimensions file and refer it inside this XML file. See here I can directly say it as okay, I'll remove this default style and I'll give directly as 100 dp. Here I'm getting 100 pixel space. So if I take 200, here 200 dp space is been given from top to till this control. So like this you can do some changes. So now let's run the application. For running the application, make sure you connect your Android device to the laptop, I mean to your system. Once you connect your Android device to your system, click on this run button. So once you click on this run button, it will display you this dialog. So it will say you, but it will ask you a question whether you want to run the application on your Android device or on the emulator. So I'll select the Android device and I'll click on the OK button. So I'm just checking this option, use same selection for future launches. So if I check this option, each and every time when you click on this run button, it won't ask you, but rather it always runs on the Android device itself. Later on you can change that one by going to this edit configuration. If you go for edit configurations, you can see over here. Right, you can see over here. So you can change the settings in this thing. So I've just clicked on the launch button. I'll just share you my screen. I just share my mobile screen. So this is my mobile screen. So now once the app runs, you should be able to see the output. See, it's launching the activity. Okay, I got some error. I think this is a common error in the system. So let me try once more. See here it's saying Drillbill running, launching your activity. Here it's launching the activity. You just need to wait for some time so that the application will run on the device. So that's it. Your application is running. Now what I can do is I can change the string over here. I'll change the string over here, and now you can see the changes directly on the screen. If you want to see it on your Android device, you can rerun your app, or else you can click on the start button. If you see this symbol enabled, so you simply click on this rerun button. It will launch the application immediately. So whatever changes we made, you should be able to see the thing on the screen. So that's it. You got the changes on the screen. So this was your first step. Next. So now I declare one more control. I'll just copy this control. Now I'll remove this text. Okay. I'll just place this somewhere else. Okay, I'll give a margin for this control. From margin top, I'll give 100 dp so that it displays below this control. Or else probably I'll just give some more space. I'll give 150 dp. Fine. Now I'll remove this text. Now, since nothing is displayed inside this text, you are not able to see this control, but this control is displayed on the screen. Only thing is it doesn't have any value. So what you can do is, we'll try to initialize the value from the Java file. So we'll give a variable name for it. So you need to use the syntax which I explained you in the PPT. I'll give the label result. I'll give the variable name as label LBL result. So now I'll go back for my Java file. After the statement, I need to get the reference of it. So I need to say text view equals to, you should do the typecasting, find view by ID, r.id dot my control name. So this will get the reference of the control. So now I set the text dynamically. Text view dot set text. Welcome to Android development. Fine. I'm setting the text dynamically through Java file. So let's rerun the application. See here. Did you all observe? One is being initialized through XML file. The next one is being initialized through Java file. And here we are getting the reference of this control and storing it inside the text view object. Fine. I'll explain the layout width and layout height. Just give me some time. I'll just show you a few things. I'll just show you a few things and then I'll explain to that layout width and layout height. So till here you all understand? Yes, there is a question like regarding the initialization. It completely depends upon the scenario, situation, whether you want to initialize the text from the Java file or from the XML file. I'll give you an example for this one. See, if you observe the login screens, if you just see any of the login screens, you display enter username, enter password, right? This will never change, right? So these kind of things you can actually hardcode in the XML file itself. Anything which is dynamic in nature, anything which comes from server, anything which comes from a database, so those things needs to be initialized through Java file. Anything which needs to be hard-coded, which never changes in your app, those things you can put inside your XML file. You can hard-code it. See something like this, username. So it completely depends upon the situation or scenario, how you want to encounter it. But both are possible. That's what it depends on you all, whether you want to initialize it from the XML file or the Java file. Okay, there is a question for you all. I am using this find view by ID function, right? I am using this function find view by ID. What is the concept of functions? How can you access a function? A function can be accessed either using the class name or the method name or using the object name. But here I am not using any object name or class name, but then too I am able to call this find view by ID function. From where did this find view by ID function come from? From where did this method find view by ID come from? Can someone answer for this? Okay, find view by ID function is present inside this class. You can observe over here. This main activity is extending this app compact activity parent class. So this function is available inside this app compact activity. If you press the control key and go for this activity, just press the control key placing the cursor on this, it will be taking you for this place. So in this activity, you should be able to find that method. See, all the methods are available over here. And here you can see it is find view by ID method is present. So since you are extending this parent class, this method is available inside this parent class. So that's the reason you are able to access this method. It's more of an inheritance concept. If you're familiar with Java, you should be able to understand this one. It's more of an inheritance concept. Did you understand this one? Can I proceed? You need to be familiar with Java because Android uses Java as a language. What is your stream? Can I know what is your stream? Are you coming from a computer science background? So Sudhir, you should be able to understand, I think, about the programming languages. Like if you are comfortable with C and C++, then if you are comfortable with C, C++, then you should be able to easily learn the Java language. Or else if you are comfortable with C Sharp, .NET, again it will be easy for you to understand this Java language. So simultaneously you just learn both the concepts, Java and Android. Since Android uses the Java as the language. Rather than starting Java online, probably you can find some books. I'm not saying you don't go with online. You can do both online as well as you can start reading some Java books. There are a lot of Java books available. So you can start reading those books so that you'll be able to learn faster. Uh, I think you have the Java complete reference which explains you the complete Java language. So probably you can start with that book, Java complete reference. But assuming if you're starting with that language, if you're starting with those books, it is mandatory that you need to have some programming knowledge like C or C++. Only then it will make you easy to understand the Java language. without the knowledge of about the C or C++, it will be very difficult for you to understand Java. Okay, this was the first control. So there it's not like that. If you have knowledge about C and C++, it's more than sufficient. So you can start with Java. The basics are always from the C and C++. It's not that you can. It's not that you need to know on C and C++. You can directly start with Java. Only thing is that it will be difficult for you to understand that language. But if you have knowledge about C and C++, it is more easy to learn the Java language. Okay, for sake of this session, I've created the sample project. For sake of this session, I've created a sample project. So I'll be showing you the project. So this is the project which I've created for this particular session. So all the controls have been explained inside this project. So I'll be giving this project at the end of the session. So you can download this. You can download this source code and you can run inside your system. So all the source code is available inside this project. So here you can see that I've explained you all the controls over here. So if you click on this text view control, you can see I've explained you different samples, different ways of using the text view control. See, it's not possible to explain each and everything over here because there are a lot of Android controls which we need to cover. So what I'll be doing is I'll be explaining all these controls inside that project. Wherever it is necessary, I'll show you the. I mean, in all the cases, I'll be showing you the code and explaining it. Wherever it is necessary, I'll be typing and executing the project. So this was the text view control which we saw. We just use a single control, right? I mean single example. So here you can see the different ways of using the text view I've shown over here. So at the end I'll be sharing you the link. You can download it. You can download that this Android, I mean this project from that link. Everything will be available over there. So I'll just explain you that source code. So this is the project which I've created. Here all the activities have been defined over here and all the layout files have been defined over here. So each and everything is nothing but an example. So the first one which we saw was the text view activity. If you observe over here, there should be an activity called as text view. Okay, here it is. Text view activity. And here if you see the same thing which I explained in the previous example, I am getting the reference of the control and I am setting the text dynamically over here. And if you go for your XML file, I've shown you different samples here. One is text appearance is small. If you apply this style, you should see the small text. Again, if you want a medium text, if you apply this style, you will get the size in the medium. If you want large, you can set this style. Likewise, for simple text, if you want to change the color, if you want to give a background color, If you want all the characters to be displayed in caps, if you set this property, if you set text all caps equals to big letters, all the characters, even though you type the characters in the small letters, everything will be displayed in caps. And this is the marquee which does some animation, and the last one is nothing but which we are initializing the text from the Java file. Here, so this is the sample. So this was the text view control. Did you all understand this one which I showed you now? I'll be giving you this complete project at the end of the session so that you can refer to this source code. Did everyone understand this one? Okay, we'll go with the next control. The next control is your button control. So a button is a push button which can be pressed or clicked by the user to perform an action. I think you might be familiar with the button, right? So if you want to perform some action, the user needs to click on this button. So once the user clicks on the button, you can perform some action on it, like getting the information from the text box, sending it to the server, validating the username and password, and doing some action on it, based on action on it. So basically a button is nothing but an action which will be occurring when the button is clicked. So whenever you click on the button, some particular action will be happening. So that piece of code you need to write on the on-click event or the listener, which I'll be explaining you further. So this is the button which you can see over here. This is the button. So these are some of the frequently used attributes. Okay, I forgot to explain the layout width and layout height. I'll explain you after I finish with this button. So these are some of the attributes which are available. So the same thing, ID, background, on click. On click is nothing but a function. You need to specify the method name. So when you click on the button, whatever you have specified inside the on click, that piece of code will be called, which I'll be showing you practically. Next is the text, typeface, visibility. Visibility is nothing but either the control should be visible or invisible. So you can set the properties over here. Next is the layout width and layout height. See, each and every time I won't be explaining this attributes because most of the attributes are common for all the Android controls. So if you understand the attributes once, it's more than sufficient because it gives the same meaning for all the controls. Same, most of the attributes will be common for all the controls in Android. Again, these are some of the methods available: set text color, set max lines, set gravity, set enable. Gravity is nothing but placing the control either in the top, bottom, left, right, or center. Apart from these methods, there are still a lot of other methods which you need to probably explore it. So you can find the button control inside this palette. Again, you have some two kinds of buttons over here. One is the button and one is the small button. There is no difference between the buttons. Only thing is the size of the button is small. It's something like a normal button and small button. Working of the two buttons are the same. Only thing is the size is different. So this is your XML code. This is your XML code for the button. Same thing. You need to give a variable name for it. You need to specify the layout width and layout height. Next, you need to specify the text. So layout width and layout height can be either wrap content or match parent, which I'll be explaining you next. Just remember these things. So this is the syntax for the button control. So this will be your Java code. This will be your Java code. So here you are getting the reference of the control. Here you are getting the reference of the control. So whenever you click on the button, some action needs to be performed, right? So that action can be performed by registering the listener over here. So this will be the code. So whenever you click on the button, whatever code you write over here, that will be executed. I repeat once more. Whenever you click on the button, whatever code you have written inside this onClick function will be executed. Again, I'll be showing you these things in the code. So this will be a syntax for Java file for the button control. Okay, before going for this control, I'll just show you that one. So in the same project, I have demonstrated the button control. Okay, I'll show you the layout file first. So this will be your layout file or the design file. So here you can see in the design there are 3 buttons. One is the button 1, button 2 and button 3, right? So if you observe over here, for this control I have applied the button style small, right? So you don't see actually any difference, but it's actually a different style. So you can either use it or else if you don't want you can neglect it. Next one is you have set the text to be as button 1. So that's the reason you're able to see this button 1 text. Next, large layout margin bottom equals to 30 dp. So I'm giving 30 dp space between this control and this control. Likewise, for each and every control, I'm giving the space. Next, the most important which I need to explain is the layout width and the layout height. So if you observe the screen over here, you can see that this button is taking the entire space of the screen, because please be careful over here, understand carefully. This particular button control is taking the entire space of the screen because layout width is being defined as fill parent, or else you can use match parent. Fine, both gives the same meaning, but you're supposed to use the match parent because fill parent is being deprecated and you're not supposed to use it. So use the match parent. If you use match parent, whatever space is available on the screen, it will take the entire space. See, if I give wrap content over here, it will take the space which the text is taking. Since button 3 is taking only so much amount of space, even the button will be allocated so that much amount of space. If you give match parent, it will take the entire space. Likewise, even for this button, if I instead of wrap content, if I give match parent, it will take the entire screen space. It will take the entire screen space horizontally. Fine. Likewise, here if I give the layout height as fill parent, then the entire mobile screen is being occupied with this button control. Since I have specified the layout height as match parent. See, if I give wrap content, it will take only so much amount of space. here I just make height as match parent. So horizontal, sorry, vertically the space is being given for the button 1 control. So this is the difference between the wrap content and match parent. If you give wrap content, whatever the if you give wrap content, whatever the text is taking, whatever the space is taken by the text, only so much amount of space will be given for this control. See, if I keep typing something, now the button size will expand since the text is occupying the screen. I mean the text needs some extra space, so that's the reason even button size is increasing. Fine. Did everyone understand the concept of this layout width and layout height? Can I proceed further? Okay, thank you. I think it is pretty much simple over here. I've just placed 3 buttons over here, right? Next, for each and every button, I've declared a variable name: button 1, button 2, and button 3. Now, there is a question for you all. If I want a space, see, this button is touching the screen, right? Now I want a space above this button. See, before this button 2, you have some space, right? Likewise, before this button 1, I want some space. So what I need to do? Sudhir, your question, button 1, where? Are you asking about this text? Yeah, it is left up to you. You can give whatever text you want. It's not compulsory that it should be a submit one itself. You know, just for demonstrating understanding purpose, I've given the button 1, button 2, button 3. You can give submit, cancel, resubmit, okay. I mean, you know the actions, right? What kind of actions you need to do. So those kind of things you can use it over there. You can use whatever name you want. But please, let it be meaningful. Okay, I asked you all a question. Can you please answer for it? I need a space above this button 1. So what should I do? See, between this button 2, button 3, there is some space, right? So I need a space above this button 1. So what should I do? Can you please reply with the answer? I need the answer. See, layout width is not for giving the space. Layout width is only setting the width and height of the screen. But if you want some space to be given, you need to use the margin. Here, I can just, I'll give margin top equals to some 50 rp. Now you can see you're getting some space. Likewise, if you want some space towards the left side, you need to say margin left equals to 20 dp, whatever space, whatever number you want. So now you can get some space. So this is how you give some space in the screen. Okay, I've declared 3 controls. This is the variable names: button 1, button 2, and button 3. Now I'll go back for my Java file. Please be careful in understanding over here. I'm declaring 2 controls over here: button 1 and button 2. Fine. Here I'm getting the reference of these controls. Find view by ID, find view by ID. I'm getting the reference of the button 1 and button 2. Now, whenever you click on the button 1, okay, I'll show you the output first. I'll just demonstrate the button 1. So now if you see, if I click on the button 1, you are able to see this toast message like you clicked button 1. So that is nothing but the toast message. So whenever I click on the button 1, I am performing some action. That action is nothing but displaying a toast message. Likewise, if I click on the button 2, I am displaying a message. You click button 2. You click button 3. So these are all nothing but the actions that is being performed when you click on the button. So here if you observe, this is the code. See here, whenever you clicked on the button 1, we saw this message, right? You click button 1. So this piece of code is getting executed whenever you click on the button 1. How do you do it? Okay, I'll type and show you once more. Yes, it has to be written in Java file. All your code needs to be written in a Java file. In your XML file, only designing can be done. That's all. Nothing else can be done in your design file. All actions, coding needs to be written inside your Java file. Okay. For registering the event, you need to register the listener. Whenever you click on the button, some action needs to be performed, right? So that action needs to be registered first. So for registering the event or the listener, the syntax is you need to type button 1, which is nothing but the control name or the variable name of the button. Next, you have the function called as set on click listener. So you get this function set on click listener. So select that function set on click listener. Now it is displaying a small pop-up right on click listener. It is saying that the parameter for this function is on click listener. So here you need to say new on click listener. Press enter. The coding will be automatically generated. See, I didn't type anything. I just typed new on click listener. Press enter key. So the code got generated. I'll show you once more. You type the variable name dot set on click listener. Inside this, you need to say new on click listener. Just press the enter key on the first option. The coding will be generated. Now you can put the toast message. I'll explain you this toast message afterwards, but this is the syntax for displaying the toast message. You click button 1 and it's great. I'll just give some other message. So whenever you click on the button, this piece of code is executed. So this is one way. Second way is you can say button 2 dot set on click listener btn listener. So this code I have written it over here. See, either you can use this syntax or else you can use this syntax. Both are same. Only thing is it has been written in different ways. So here I am registering this listener and I'm initializing that variable and initializing that listener or the event and storing it inside this variable. Right. See, this entire piece of code was written inside this on click listener. Right. Whatever I highlighted over here, it's directly declaring a variable of the type on click listener and storing it inside this on click listener method. But here I am registering the listener and storing it inside this variable. Next I am giving this variable for this function. That's it. Both are same. Either you type the entire code over here itself or else you type everything separately and give this variable for this method. That's it. So this is second approach. The third approach is here button 3 click. I have not declared any button control, right? I just minimize these functions. You can see I have not declared any button 3, right? The reason is if you observe my function name is button 3 underscore click with 2 parameters, right? So this button 3 is directly being called from the XML file. If you see button 3 on click, see this one, Android on click equals to this function. So whenever you click on this function, I'm saying that let this function be called. Button 3 click be called. So this method is being defined over here. Button 3 click. So that's the reason whenever you click on the button 3, this message is being displayed. Did you all understand about this? Okay, we'll go with the next control. The next control is your radio button. I'll just show you the output first so that you get some idea about the control. So the third one is the radio button control. So radio button is nothing but a control which has only two states, either checked or not checked. When you have a group of radio buttons, in the group of radio buttons, only one of the radio button can be checked. If you see over here, if I click on Java, the C# is being unchecked. Likewise, if I click on C language, the Java is being unchecked. So this is the working feature of the radio button. So in a group of radio buttons, at a time only one can be selected. Multiple cannot be selected. If you want to select multiple options, then you need to use the checkbox control, which I'll be explaining you next. But this is the radio button control. Whenever you have a group of radio buttons, at a time you can select only one radio button control. If you select the other radio button control, it will be the previous one will be deselected, which you can see over here. See here, at a time I can select only one control, right? So this is nothing but the radio button control. And once I select the radio button control and click on the submit button, you can see the toast message C# selected. When I click on this Java and click on the submit, you can see a toast message Java selected. So whichever option is selected, I am getting the value of it and displaying it inside the toast message. I repeat once more, whichever radio button is selected or checked, I am getting the value of it and displaying it inside the toast message. So basically I am just identifying which radio button is selected from the list of options. What is the most frequent example? Can you give some example where you can use this radio button? Can you give some example where you can use this radio button? I need an example. I need an example. Okay, I'll give you an example. Male and female. You usually see it in the website, right? Websites, phones, you see it, right? Male or female. So at a time you can select any one of the options, right? So there are different. Either you can give an option student or employee, or student or teacher. So a person can be either a student or a teacher. So this is the radio button. I'll explain you this thing. A radio group class is used for a set of radio buttons. That's what I said you. The radio button has only two states, either checked or unchecked. So it is being represented over here. So these are some of the attributes available. So these are some of the attributes available. So I think everything is common. Only thing is this checked property. So by default, if you want the radio button to be selected, then you can say Android checked equals to true or false. If you set this Android checked equals to true, by default it will be checked. If you don't say anything, it will be false. See, this property is not available for the previous two controls, text view or button control. This checked property is available only for the radio button and checkbox control. Radio button and checkbox control. So it's just that by default you are saying whether it should be selected or not selected. I mean checked or not checked. So these are some of the functions available for this radio button control. So you can find the radio button control inside this. So you can find this radio button control inside this palette. And the code for the radio button is this. So you need to put all your radio buttons inside this radio group control. Here in the example there is only one radio button. You can put all the radio buttons inside the radio group. Fine. And the code is same. You need to give the variable name for it, layout width, layout height, and the text what needs to be displayed. So this is the code for the radio button. So here I am getting the reference of the radio group. If you are using radio group concept, a radio group is nothing but a combination of multiple radio buttons. I repeat once more, radio group is nothing but it keeps track, or it is nothing but a collection of multiple radio button controls. So if you are using radio group, you can declare a variable name and store the reference inside this. Next, inside a radio group you might be having multiple radio buttons, right? So to identify which radio button is selected, this is the syntax. And you need to use this function, radio group dot get checked radio button ID. So each and every control will be having an ID, right? So whichever radio button is selected or checked, if you call this function it will give you the reference of the radio button which is being selected. Next, you can say find view by ID selected. Earlier we used to say r.id dot some variable name, right? But here they are getting the reference dynamically. Whichever radio button is selected, they are getting that reference dynamically over here. So you'll be getting the radio button reference. Next, you are getting the value inside it. The radio button is having some value, right? So if you want to get that value, you need to say radio button dot get text dot toString. So this will give you the value. Next, if you want to make the selection to be manual process, then you can say radio button dot set checked equals to true. So this is dynamic. So dynamically you are setting the radio button to be as checked. Next is boolean checked equals to radio button is checked. So this will say whether this radio button is selected or not selected. It will return your boolean value true or false, indicating whether it is being checked or not checked. Okay. Before we go with the next control, I just show you the code for the radio button very quickly. So here you should be able to find the radio button. Yes, radio button control is there. I'll explain you the Java XML file, and again I hope you know where is the XML files present. So this is the XML file. So you have 5 radio buttons and 1 submit button control. Here inside the radio group I have 5 radio buttons. Fine. And in the last I have the button control. And if you want the button to be present in center, you need to use this property. layout gravity equals to center horizontal, so that your control will be visible in center. Remember this one. If you want the control to be visible in the center, you need to say center horizontal for the layout underscore gravity. Here, if you want the button to be in the right side, you can say layout gravity equals to right or left or center horizontal. Fine. So we have 5 radio button controls, all are same. Here, radio button 1, the layout button, layout height, I have given it as wrap content. Next, text is equals to C, and I have declared a variable name over here, and the text size is 20 SP. Likewise, for C++, C sharp, F sharp, and Java language. So for each and every control, I have given the variable name over here. Fine. Can I proceed further? Is everyone able to understand? Can I proceed further? Yes, you can ask. Can you ask fast? This? No, that feature is not there. This. So can I proceed further? Okay, thank you. So I'll explain the Java file. So now you need to get the reference of all these controls. You have 5 radio button controls, right? 5 radio buttons and 1 submit button control. So you need to get the reference of all 6 controls inside the Java file. So here you can see that I have declared 5 radio buttons. Fine. I have declared 5 radio buttons. Next, inside the onCreate, I am getting the reference of all the radio button controls. Find view by ID, first radio button, second radio button, third, fourth, fifth. So you can find all these variable names over here. Here, all are these control names. Now, for this submit button, I have directly given on click over here itself. In the previous example for the button, I showed you 3 examples how you can register the listener. So, in the 3 examples, you can follow whichever you want. Fine. So, I'm just using this concept. So, I've directly given the method name over here, btn click. So, whenever I click on this whenever I click on this btn button, this particular this particular function is called btn click. So, I think you should be able to see this btn click over here. So whenever I click on the button, this particular button is action is called. So inside this, I am checking for the condition. If rbc.is checked, if this radio button is checked, I am displaying a toast message C selected. If second button is, if the second radio button is selected, I am displaying a toast message. Likewise, third one, fourth one, and fifth one. So at a time, only one can be selected, right? So that's the reason I am checking for the if condition. If it is selected, I am displaying the toast message. That's it. Okay, do you all understand this Java code? Okay, fine. I'll just go with the fourth control. Okay, I show you the output of the control. The fourth one is the checkbox. See, the radio button and checkbox feature wise both are same. Only thing is that in radio button in radio button at a time you can select only one option, but in checkbox you can select multiple options. That's it. There's no difference. Both works in the same way, except that in radio button you can select only one option. In checkbox you can select multiple options. Can you give some examples where you can use this checkbox? Can you give some examples where you can use the checkbox? Yes, example for multiple checkbox. It's not multiple checkbox, it's just checkbox. When you say checkbox, when you say checkbox, it is assumed to be as multiple checking itself. I mean, I need a real-time example. You can give some examples, either which you have seen in the apps or the websites. Okay, I'll give you an example. In the websites you might have seen, or in the apps you might have seen, they'll ask you to select the languages which you know. So you can select the languages over there. So a person will always know multiple languages, right? A person will always know multiple languages, right? So in that case, you need to provide the checkbox over there. Yeah, there you cannot provide a radio button because a person will know multiple languages. So if you provide a radio button, it won't be meaningful. So that's the reason it depends on situation or scenario whether you want to use the radio button or checkbox. In this case, for a male or female, you can't use a checkbox, right? Because a person can be either a male or female. So in that case, you need to use the radio button control. Did you all understand the checkbox concept? So same procedure here. Whenever I select and deselect, there is a toast message being displayed. So I'll show you the code for this one. There is checkbox activity which I've created. So there is checkbox activity which is created. So I'll show you the XML code. Again, the XML code is very simple. It is almost same as your radio button. So here you can see I have put 5 checkbox. Fine. I have put 5 checkbox, and for each and every control I have given the variable name. I have given the height and width, and by default you can see one checkbox is selected. So here since I have set checked equals to true, by default one checkbox is selected, and I have given some color, text, what is the text, and text size. So now if I want multiple checkbox to be selected, I'll just copy that one and give it for this thing. So now you can see multiple checkboxes selected because the first checkbox and third checkbox I set the property to be as true. Checked equals to true. So that's the reason you are able to see multiple checkbox being selected. So this was your XML file. So in the Java file, I'm getting the reference of these 5 variables. Checkbox. I'm declaring the variables for 5 checkbox. Here I'm getting the reference of all the 5 checkbox. Understood? Here I'm getting the reference of all the 5 checkbox controls. Next, see, whenever I select the checkbox, I need to display a toast message, right, indicating how many checkbox are being selected. So in that case, there are two different ways of doing that one. One is you can create a class. And implement the checkbox dot onCheck change listener. So this is an interface, fine. This is an interface. You are creating a class and implementing this interface. So since it is an interface, you need to override the method. Since it is an interface, you need to override this method on checked change. Okay, if you here, if I delete everything, it will give you the error. It's saying the error is must be either be declared as abstract or implement the method, because since it's a here it's an interface. Since it is an interface, you need to implement the method. So implement the method. You can right click on this, generate. You can right click on the interface, generate, implement the methods. Click on this fourth option, implement methods. So it will give you this dialog box. Select the method and click on OK. Here it will generate the method. So inside this function, I have written this code. So I am declaring a string buffer. I am declaring a string buffer object. Next, I am checking whether the first checkbox is selected. If the first checkbox is selected, I am saying builder.append of string. It's basically I am concatenating. I am adding the string to this string buffer. Either you can use a string buffer or else you can use the string data type. So I'm just checking whether each and every checkbox is being selected. If the checkbox is selected, an appropriate value is being added to the buffer. So if you see the first one, I'm checking whether the first checkbox is selected and adding the text. Likewise, I'm checking for the second checkbox whether it is being selected. If it is selected, for the existing builder itself, I'm appending the string. Remember, append is different. Append means it will update the buffer. It won't clear the buffer, it will update the buffer at the end. Likewise, I'm doing for all the 5 checkbox. Finally, I'm checking whether the builder.length is not equals to 0. If there are no checkbox being selected, then I'm displaying a message languages. Then I'm displaying nothing selected. If there are no checkbox being selected, then I'm displaying the toast message as nothing selected. If you see over here I'm getting a toast message saying nothing selected. So I'm just checking the length of the string. So if the string has something, then I'm displaying it inside the toast message. Here I'm saying builder.length of -2 less languages selected. The reason why I'm using this -2 is because to remove the comma. The reason why I'm using this -2 is because I need to remove this comma in the last. Did you all understand this concept? Can I proceed? Okay. I'll go with the next thing. So the next one inside this module is toast. So if I click on this toast, I have demonstrated 3 examples. Short toast, which displays for a short period of time. Next one is long toast, which displays for approximately 2 to 3 seconds. Next is positioning the toast. So you can position the toast either top or center or bottom. So this toast is not a control. Remember this one. Toast is not a control, but it's just a library being provided by the Android framework for displaying the messages to the user. Simple. Toast is not a control or a widget, but it's just an Android library which is being provided by the framework for displaying the messages on the screen. It will display the message and it will fade away. Fade away in the sense it will be invisible. So this is the checkbox. So this is a checkbox. Sorry. Okay. A checkbox is, I forgot to explain the checkbox over here. A checkbox is an on or off switch that can be toggled by the user. You should use checkboxes when presenting users with a group of selectable options that are not mutually exclusive. So that's what I was explaining. When the scenario is when the user wants to select multiple options, then you need to use this checkbox concept. So these are some of the attributes available for the checkbox. It's almost the same as the radio button itself. So these were some of the functions available for the checkbox. So you can find the checkbox control over here inside the palette. And this is the code. We already saw this code, so I'll just be skipping this one since I've already explained in the project. So this will be your control. I'm getting the reference of this control. Now if I want to get this text, see this is the text of the checkbox, right? So if you want to get the text of the checkbox, you need to use this syntax control name dot get text dot toString. You'll be able to get the value of the checkbox. Next, if you want to manually check the checkbox, then you need to use this code control name dot set checked equals to true. So from the Java file, you'll be able to select this option. Next, if you want to check whether the checkbox is selected or not, you need to use this function is checked. Is checked will return you either true or false. So the next one is your toast. So Android toast can be used to display information for a short period of time. The toast contains a message that disappears after a short duration of its appearing on the screen. I think you were seeing the examples which I was showing, right? It displays a message for a short period of time and again it vanishes, it collapses or it fades away. So it's basically used for displaying the messages for the user. See, whenever the user enters wrong information and he clicks on the submit button, you can use this toast message for displaying saying that you provided username and password was wrong. Please enter correct username and password. Something like this. You can just provide some messages inside the toast. But let it be short. So these are the two values that you can provide. Either it should be length long or length short. If you specify length long, the toast will be displayed for approximately of 3 to 4 seconds, right? And if you use length dot short, it will display a toast message for approximately 1 or 2 seconds. Apart from this, you can't give any other values. You can't customize it. Like I want a toast message for 10 seconds, 1 minute. No, you can't do it. It can be either length long or length short. So these are the functions available for the toast class, which I'll be explaining in the code. So this is an example. So for displaying the toast message, there are different ways. So you can use this syntax. Toast is the class. Toast is the class Make text is a function. Make text is a function, and for this make text function, you need to pass three parameters. One, two, third parameter. You need to pass three parameters for this make text function. First parameter is get application context. This will return you the current activity reference or a current project reference. Fine. You need to mention this get application context. This is the built-in function. You were using the find view by id, right? How did that find view by id function come from? It came from your parent class, right? Likewise, even this get application context also you can use it directly. It is being inherited by the parent class. Next, you need to display the message over here. Third one is the duration. Either you can say length short or length long. After creating this, you need to call the show function, which actually displays the message on the screen. This is one way of displaying a toast message in a single line. Second one is you can say toast.makeText get application context display the message toast.lengthShort. So you are passing the first parameter, second parameter, and third parameter. Sorry. Here, see, if you observe over here, you are calling the show function directly, right? But here, if you observe, there is no show function, but rather I am storing the toast object inside this variable. Fine, I am not calling the show function. If I call the show function, it will display the message. Rather than doing that one, I am storing the object inside this toast variable. Next, I am setting toast.set margin 50, 50. Right? I am setting the margin set 50, 50. Next, I am calling the show function. So either you follow this example or follow this example. Both gives you the same output. If you want to set the margin and other things, you need to use this syntax. Second example. If you don't want to set the margin and other things, you can directly use this first example. So this was your toast concept. I'll just explain you the code. So if you see the screen, I have just simple three buttons, button 1, button 2 and button 3. I have directly initialized the on click over here. So when I click on the first button, BTN 1 click is called. For the second button, BTN 2 is click, and third button, BTN 3 click is called. So if I come back for my Java file, you can see all the three buttons over here, right? So when I click on the BTN 1 click, here you can see toast.makeText get application context, and this is the message, and I'm setting the duration and calling the show function. So I explained this code in the PPD, so the same thing is represented over here. All you need to do is you need to give a message over here. So the first example is nothing but length short. Second example also is the same thing. Only thing is the duration here is length long. Third one is toast.makeText. I'm displaying some message over here and I'm storing that object inside this toast variable. In the PPT, I showed you the margin, right? So you can set the margin. Along with the margin, you can also set the gravity where you want to display. In this example, you saw when I click on this position text. When I click on this position text, you saw the toast is getting displayed in the center of the screen, right? The reason is I'm setting the gravity as center horizontal and center vertical. Center horizontal and center vertical with coordinates as 0 and 0. And finally, you call the toast dot show function, which displays the toast message. So this was the code for the toast. Do you have any notes till here? Do you have any doubts still here? Okay, there is a question. There is a question for you all. What is this make text? What is this make text? Can you answer it fast? What is this make text? Is it a I didn't understand what is that everything is mixed in a sense like what? Okay, I'll explain this one. Make text is a static function. It will take you some time. It will get adjusted. So you need to keep practicing. So you learn the Java concept as well as with the Android. So you will be comfortable with that one. So these are all the Java concept. Make text is a static function which is present inside this toast class. A method will be called either using the class name or the object name. But in this case, I am not declaring an object, but rather directly calling with the class name. So this is a static function present inside this toast class. Is it fine? Okay. You can you can take a break for 2-3 minutes and then we'll be starting with the next module. So this will be your fourth module, Android text fields. A text field is a basic control in Android which is used to input text from the user. You can add a text field to the Android layout with the edit text control. In addition to typing, text field allows for a variety of other activities such as text selection, cut, copy, paste, and data lookup via auto completion. So in this unit, you will be seeing different types of text fields which you can use in your apps. So at the end of this unit, you will be able to recognize most of the varieties of text fields, XML code of the edit text control, edit text, how it is referenced in Java, and some of the attributes of the edit text control. So these are some of the edit text controls available in the Android: plain text, password, date, time, and other things. So before explaining this one, I'll just show you the output of it first so that you get some more idea about this one. So if you see in the unit 4, there is one concept, edit text control. This control is used for accepting the information from the user. You know, the first control which we saw in the Android was your text view control. Basically to output the information, right? To display the information to the user. This control, edit text control, is used for taking input from the user, not giving the output. Giving the output is through text view. Taking the input is through edit text control. So this control is used for taking the input from the user. There are different ways of this one. So if you see the output over here, the first one, here enter something. I can type whatever I want. Next, this is one example. Second type of edit text control is your password. Whatever you type, everything will be in the form of dots. Fine. Whatever you type, everything will be there in the form of dots. Even this is the edit text control. Only thing it is password enabled. Third one is the date display. If you observe, once I place the cursor inside this edit text control, you can see my keypad, my QWERTY keypad is changed for numbers. So what are things available in the date? In the date, you can either enter numbers or hyphen, right? So only those characters are visible inside the keypad. So this is third type. You can't enter any characters, but you can enter only numbers over here and hyphen. Next is only numbers. You can enter only numbers. This is edit text with number thing. Next is caps autocorrect. See, if you observe over here, okay, if you observe the first edit text, you can see by default all the characters are in small letters, right? Everything I've erased. Now if I start typing, everything is in small letters, right? But if you observe the fifth one, by default the first character will be as big letter. Since I've set the caps and autocorrect concept. Fine. Everything is same except that initially when you type the first character, you can see all the characters are in caps. Once you type once you type a letter, everything will be in the small letters. So it is taking the first letter to be as caps. The next one is keyboard action send. So now if you observe, the keyboard action is changed over here, right? If you observe over here, the keyboard action is changed. If you observe, if I place the cursor in some other, you can see the cursor is different over here right now, right? And now if you observe, if I place the cursor inside this keyboard action send, you can see the keyboard action is changed. Again, you can configure even these things. So the next example is your foreground color. I think this is very simple. And the next one is your background color. So these are the different ways of using your edit text control. So I have given all the samples inside this project related to edit text. Did you all understand this edit text control? Did you all understand this edit text control? Okay, I'll first explain you the code and then explain the PPT, so it will be easy for you all to understand. So this is my edit text. So if you observe over here, one label, one edit text. If you observe over here, there is one text view and one edit text. One text view and one edit text. Here, I'll explain you this linear layout in the next module. I'll just give you a short brief description about this linear layout. Why we use this linear layout. If you observe this linear layout, how many controls are there inside this linear layout? How many controls are there inside this linear layout? See, this linear layout is a parent control. And so inside this linear, I'm closing this linear layout over here, right? So inside this linear layout, I have two controls. One is the text view and one is the edit text, right? One is the edit text. And the reason why these two controls are getting displayed next to each other is The meaning of this linear layout is whatever controls are there inside this linear layout, it will place the controls either in horizontal manner or vertical manner. Understood? It will place the controls either in horizontal fashion or vertical fashion. There are two controls over here. In this linear layout, I set the orientation as horizontal. So that's the reason these two controls are getting displayed next to each other. Now if I change from horizontal to vertical, you just see what will happen. Here, see, this text view and edit text is getting displayed one below the other because orientation is vertical. So that is the meaning of this linear layout. Whatever you place inside this linear layout, the controls will be either in horizontal fashion or vertical fashion. See, now if I can just copy paste these controls and paste it within this one. So now this linear layout contains 4 controls. Here all are getting placed one below the other in a vertical fashion. So that is how the linear layout will work. It is simple. Whatever controls, basically the children, these two are nothing but the children of this linear layout, right? So whatever children are present inside this linear layout, it will place the controls either in vertical or horizontal fashion. So this is the linear layout concept. And if you observe, how many linear layouts are there? So if you observe the screen, how many linear layouts are there? Can you please reply fast? Exactly, there are 8 linear layouts, one below the other. And if you observe one more thing, I'll just minimize this code. Again, there is one more concept, relative layout, which I'll explain you in the next module. If you observe, there is one more linear layout which contains all the 8 linear layouts. Here, 8 linear layouts are there, right? So all these linear layouts are present in one more linear layout, the parent linear layout, and that parent linear layout has set the orientation as vertical. So that's the reason you're able to see all the linear layouts in vertical fashion. See, all these are all the linear layouts, right? Which contains this text view, edit text, text view, and edit text. So all these linear layouts are present in one more linear layout, and that parent linear layout orientation is vertical. So all these linear layouts, all these 8 linear layouts will be placed one below the other in vertical fashion. It's just that you need to play around with the orientation, horizontal and vertical, using the linear layout. But the concept of linear layout is very much simple. It places the children either in horizontal or vertical fashion. That's it. Did you understand this one? Okay. Now I'll explain this edit text. So now if you see, there is one text view. I think I don't need to explain the text view because I've already explained. So I have one text view and one edit text. So in the first edit text, it was very much simple, right? You were able to enter whatever you want. In the second edit text is the password box, password, right? So if you see the second edit text, here I've set the input type equals to text password. You need to set the input type equals to text password. So whatever you enter inside this thing, password will be in dots. Input type is of various types. Here, input type equals to, you have date, date time, none, number. So these are all the types. So there are different types. So in this, I'll be selecting text password. There are different input types. So you need to select any one of the options. Next, I am setting the max length to be as 5. So at maximum you can enter only 5 characters. You can specify whatever you want, but you can also specify max length, which will restrict the user from entering the more characters. Next one is date display. In date display, it's very simple. I'm setting the input type to be as date. In the previous example, I set the input type as password. Now I'm setting the input type as date. Likewise, for numbers, I need to set input type equals to phone. So you can enter only numbers, which is of a type will be as phone. Likewise, you can set the autocorrect. If you see input type, I've specified two things over here: text cap sentence and text autocorrect. If you set this text cap sentence, whatever you type in the first character inside this thing will be in the big letter, and next everything will be in small letter. And the meaning of this text autocorrect is, see, if you observe the screen, if I start typing, you are getting these options right. So this is nothing but, if you want these options to be displayed, you need to set this property, text auto correct. Here it's an autocorrect. So if you set this text autocorrect property, you will get this auto suggestion. The next one is your keyboard action. So here, instead of here input type equals to text, I'm just input type equals to text, and here I'm sending IME options equals to action done. So that's the reason you're able to see this action done button over there. If I place the cursor over here, you can see the button got changed over here. Now it became action sent. Likewise, there are different kinds of buttons that you can probably explore it. Here action done is there, action go, action next, none, previous, search. Here there are different kinds of action buttons. So each and everything, when you select any one of these option, the button will be, accordingly the button will be visible inside the keypad. So next one is foreground color. Everything is same except that I'm setting the text color equals to some color. For the background color, I'm setting the background equals to some color. That's it. And inside my Java file, so now if you observe over here, so now if you observe the screen, instead of action done, I'll give action search. Fine. I'll give action search. So now the search button should be enabled. Inside the edit text, I can capture that one. Here, I'm getting the reference of the edit text. Edit text is nothing but I've declared the variable over here. So for this control, I'm declared a variable name as search. So I'll get the reference of this control over here. Next, whenever you click on this button, I need to get the value from the edit text and display as one. So here I've written the code. Probably I'll just show you running this app. It's just building the app. It's trying to run the app. Okay. I changed that I changed this keyboard action, changed it to keyboard search action, search. So now if I place the cursor inside this text box, you can see earlier it was action done, right? Earlier it was action done button. Now you have the search button, right? Because I've set the IME options equals to action search. So that's the reason you are able to see this search button over here. Now, if I type something and click on the search button, okay, nothing is happening. So when you click on the search button, you can write a code over here. IME search. So whenever I click on the search button, I am getting the information from the edit text and I am displaying it over here. See, right now inside this thing you selected IME option as action search, right? So even in the Java file, you can just check for the condition. Whenever you click on the action button, these are all called as the action buttons. These are all called as the action buttons. Remember this one. Whatever you see over here is nothing but called as the action buttons. So depending upon the action buttons, you can write the code. So whenever you click on the action buttons, you can perform some actions. So here you can check which action button was clicked. So here I'm checking action ID equals to IME action search. Whether I clicked on the search button. If I have clicked on the search button, I'm displaying the source message. I'm taking whatever was entered inside this edit text and displaying in the source message. So I'll just rerun the app once more. So again, I'll go back for edit text. Here I type something. Now when I click on the search button, you can see whatever I typed is displaying in the source message. Because I have handled that event. Whenever I click on this action buttons, I am writing a code for it. And I'm doing it over here. So I'm just checking whether the button was action search. If it is action search, I'm displaying the message over here. You can also put an else if condition. Else if action ID equals to editor info dot IME something IME done. If I have clicked on the done button, then this particular code will be executed. You are done. I just give some message like this. Do you understand this one? Can I proceed further? Okay. I just explained these things in PPT. I think now it should be very much easy for you all to understand because I've explained you in the coding itself. I think these are some of the attributes of the edit text. So these are some of the attributes available for the edit text. All are edit text itself. Whatever I showed you till now was edit text. Only thing is input type you can define however you want. Whether it should be a password or whether it should be a date, phone number, text, email, whatever is it. Accordingly, the keyboard action will change depending upon whatever IME options you have set. So these are some of the methods available for the edit text. We won't be using these things except we'll be using only for this function set text or get text. So this is how you reference the control. I think I've already explained you this one. It's almost same as your previous example itself. So this is my control name. This is my control name. I'm getting the reference of this control and storing it inside this variable. So you need to do a typecasting over here. Fine. Next, to get whatever is entered inside this edit text control, I need to say edit text dot get text dot toString. This will return all the values inside the edit text control. So whatever you have entered will be written inside this variable. So it's basically used for getting the information from the edit text control, whatever user has typed. Either you can drag and drop the edit text. Probably I'll just show you even this one. So what you can do is, see, instead of typing the code, over here, what you can do is, you can also drag and drop the controls. You can also drag and drop the controls. See, all the controls are available over here. So you can just drag and drop the controls like this. But what I would suggest for you all is, don't drag and drop the controls, but rather you type the code, because if you type the code, you can remember the syntax of the control, right? So try to avoid drag and drop. If you're an experienced person, then you can use this drag and drop feature. But for the beginners, what I would suggest you is write the code manually on the text tab. You write the code manually so that you'll remember what is the syntax for the edit text. See, here there is no code over here. If there was no code, right? So now I'll just do a drag and drop. So I'll just drag and drop a control over here. Now you can find that a control is being added. This is the component tree, or you can find the hierarchy of your controls. See, as soon as I drag the control, there is code generated. If you go for your text window and if you see the code is generated. But you won't understand what is the meaning of it. So it's better you manually type the code so that you'll remember the properties of it. So this is the plain text which we saw. Plain text, you can enter whatever you want. This is the syntax. Only thing is, input type you should specify as text. Even if you don't specify input type as text, by default it is text. Next is, we have the password edit text. For the password, you need to set the input type as password. That's it. Next is date values, date and time. You just need to set the input time as date or time. See, like this. You just need to set the input type as date or time. See, this is an example for time. Next one is numbers. You can set the input type as number. So only numbers can be entered. Next one is cap autocorrect feature, which I explained you. Whatever you type for the first time, first letter will be in cap. Along with that, it will display you this suggestions for this particular thing. Keyboard actions. I showed you this keyboard actions, right? Action done, action search. So there are a lot of actions available. So for setting that one, you need to set this IME options, which I explained you in the code. So you can set the foreground color and background color. So you can set the foreground color and background color. So just to give a summary of what we saw in this unit, Android provides a very useful control called edit text, which allows the user to type text into your app. It can be either a single line or multi-line. By changing the input type attribute, you can use this features, like you can specify the input type as number, password, date, type, and so on. Text selection is possible in edit text control, and you can do operations like cut, copy, and paste. You can use the IME options attribute to customize the input keyboard, like whether you want an action send or whatever you want, action send, action search, action previous, all those things. You can write your XML code to design the edit text control, or else you can use a drag and drop feature, which I explained you. Either you do a drag and drop or manually write the code. The controls can be referenced in the Java code with the predefined set of functions. Okay, the remaining units, the fifth unit and sixth unit, I'll be taking in the next session. So for this week, probably you can just explore with these controls, because these are the most basic controls which you'll be using in Android development, app development. So try to learn these controls, whatever I showed you in Unit 3 and Unit 4. Fine. Okay, I'll be sharing you all this codes. I'll be sharing you the sample. Just give me some time so that you can download the source code and explore it. Run the project in your Android Studio and see the output. After that, go for each and every activity and understand the code which is being written over there. So whatever link I've given, just go for that link. Go for the link. I'll just say once more, go for this link, download the zip file. This is the code which contains all the Android Studio project source code, which I was explaining you today. So download the zip file, and all the other folders are which contains the images of how to install the software and how to create a new project. So you can download and keep it with you all for reference. So download all these things. You extract this you extract the zip file. Once you extract the zip file, go for your file, open, select the location where you have extracted the zip project. So once, see, this is a zip file. Once you extract the zip file, you should be able to see this icons. So select this option, click on OK. Once you click on OK, the project will be imported inside your Android Studio. Next, you can click on the run button and start running your application inside your mobile device. This is only for your reference. So this contains all the Android Studio source code. Sudhir, I have shared the link in the chat window itself. You can copy that one. Probably I can just share you once more. Or else, it is the same link itself. Or else you can copy. It's difficult to copy because it contains, it's a case sensitive. So it's better you take the link which I've shared in the chat window. Did you get the link? Just put that link in your browser and see whether you're able to open that page which I was showing you all. Are you able to open the page? The download page? Okay, you can start downloading and using it. As sessions goes on, I'll be giving you the code samples for other sessions and other controls. See, these code samples contains the entire source code for each and every control with some different scenarios. So if you understand this one, it is more than sufficient for you all to create an Android Studio, for creating an Android app. Is there anything you want to ask? Any doubts? Okay, remaining things we'll see in the next session. But until then, you keep practicing with all the things which I was explained today. If you have any doubts, you can mail to us so that we'll be able to answer to your mails. Thank you for attending the session. Have a great day. Email address, you need to contact your representative. Whoever is in charge of you all, you need to contact them so you can mail to them. So we'll be answering to those mails. You can get the recorded. You can get the recorded video. Probably you need to again ask your representative. So they'll be sharing you the link. So you can watch the video or download the video from there itself. So whatever I did today, everything is being recorded. Just ask your just ask your representative, whoever is in charge for you all. So they'll be sharing the link and you can proceed from there. Is there anything else? Okay. Thank you for attending the session. Have a great day.